Robbie O'Davis has been waiting for a medical clearance on his foot, but the good news hasn't come.
Had some reports on his that have to be confirmed that he may have to have a bone graft, so that's a big worry. So we're not quite sure about Robbie at this stage.
In contrast, Darren Albert is straight back into the top grade to play Auckland this weekend after his foot injury.
I was a bit surprised, Warren put me back in first grade. I thought he might have given me a start in reserve grade since the wingers that have been there so far have been playing so well.
He'll renew a partnership with Matthew Gidley in one of Newcastle's strongest backlines named this season, although Adam McDougall and Andrew John still have to get through State of Origin. The same too for Ben Kennedy, with Josh Perry to be blooded in the top grade with a start from the bench.
I want him to come up, see what he's got, show us what he can do in first grade, and then we'll know.
Meanwhile, the sounds of supporter boycotts of Saturday's match have the Knights' management stirred but not shaken.
I think it can be blown out of proportion, the amount of energy that you guys run in the press with an issue that tends to make it seem maybe bigger than it is.
Thursday's information meeting for members about the salary cap issues will come after the NRL board meeting on the same issue. Newcastle isn't holding its breath for a dispensation for homegrown life member players such as Matthew Johns.
I'm not, overly confident that we're still in there fighting, and that's all we can do at this stage.
The new gallery will be built directly behind the existing one in Awabba House. After years of planning, Lake Macquarie Council is keen to get it off the ground.
The development of a major gallery now behind the building here will allow us to have all the travelling exhibitions. The Archibald Prize has been promised to us now for 2001, so it'll be very exciting.
The $2.3 million contract for the design and construction of the new building has been taken on by local company RW Black. The deal was cemented this morning, with the next step being the start of work.
The construction certificate is expected at the end of this week. We can start establishing the site, fencing and whatever on Monday.
Keeping the work with a local company is also seen as a step in the right direction by council. The new gallery is expected to be completed by the end of the year. Brooke Webster, NBN News. This year's winter appeal was launched this morning at St Pius High School. The author of a report into homelessness, Colin Robinson, addressed students as a first step towards achieving a better informed community.
Most people imagine that being homeless is being on the street, and they often picture like a middle-aged or elderly man who's an alcoholic or maybe has got a mental health problem.
But it's not a true reflection.
In fact, homeless people come from all walks of life, and the majority of people who will be homeless tonight in Australia will be women with children.
He believes that with government leadership, steps can be taken to stop homelessness before it happens.
So we really need to work in those areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty, provide resources in those communities for people to feel that they've got places to go, and start to work out some of the problems.
St Vincent de Paul is calling on the public for support as temperatures drop and life for the homeless becomes even harder. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
With more than $436 million allocated to the Hunter in capital works funding, it was no surprise the budget attracted a mostly positive response.
Sets the direction in which the state government is moving, which allows council to make its plans and policies and objectives compatible with that as well.
As promised, Hunter Health was allocated a healthy portion. One big ticket item, a $17 million pathology unit at John Hunter Hospital. Funds also to kickstart the health strategy, which includes the upgrading of Belmont Hospital. $2.9 million was also devoted to an environmental impact statement for a high-speed rail link and funds for the Fernley Cycleway. Maitland also fared well with most of their election promises fulfilled. The relocation of the Traffic Infringement Processing Bureau, just one of the projects for the Lower Hunter.
Probably the disappointing part is that there was a promise of a new school at Ashtonfield going back to 1995. We haven't seen that in the budget yet.
And even though the Upper Hunter received the lion's share of capital works funding with $113 million for projects, local MP George Souris says health and education were largely ignored.
We were looking for a much larger slice of the overall state capital budget, partly as a payback for the Olympics, but also equal to our share of the population. And on both scores, we lag behind.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News. Newcastle may boast one of the country's busiest ports, but it's also a target for potential smugglers attempting to import illegal products. Today, though, more than 600 children were given a first-hand look at the kind of things brought into the country, the audience enthusiastic to say the least.
And then we saw these little bugs in this tube thing, like this little wriggly worm mosquito. And then there's bugs crawling up the wall in our wheat thing.
Other things included sniffer dogs, a beagle and golden retriever, proving just how important the lessons of quarantine are.
We're asking all of the community, including school children, to share the responsibility, to learn about quarantine and to take positive steps to make sure they don't bring back anything to Australia that could affect the economy or the environment or our agricultural industries or even human health.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News. The train trip between Newcastle and the Civic Railway Station is not a service which attracts large numbers of patrons. In fact, timetables indicate 185 train movements between the stations each day, with an average of less than 3 people on each train. But this week, the removal of the line from Civic prompted open debate when it was recommended in a report that went to Council. The issue was today revisited by an angry Lord Mayor, calling for reason and calm.
I want people to know that we're not here in a vacuum. We realise that the rail is something that needs to be considered and we will not ignore it. But in the meantime, it doesn't help anybody if there's a polarised, hard-fought debate about whether it should stay or not stay.
One development council can celebrate, though, as a win in the Land and Environment Court. They've been given consent orders to stop construction workers from proceeding with the final stages of development at Katara's Leader project because of traffic plan concerns. Workers will now have to see council approval granted today to finish construction of the major bulky goods development.
It's unfortunate that we've had these difficulties, but in a major development like that, in a difficult area where the traffic is difficult already, obviously it was going to always not be easy.
Council is hoping the project is completed by late next month.
it showcases all of our product, not just our heritage that we have concentrated on in the past.
The United States Naval Sea Systems Command doesn't often give awards to foreigners, but Cowan Manufacturing in Warners Bay has earned this rare compliment.
In recognition of completing the largest contract the Navy has had for life support and diving equipment,
NAVC at this point has recognised the fact that they've presented our company with a special plaque, and that's never been done before outside of the US.
The award has come at the end of a $20 million contract which has run for 13 years. The portable decompression chambers, used when diving accidents occur or when Navy divers have to make rapid ascents, have now also been sold to the Royal Australian Navy and the Philippines. Bob Cowan says the recognition shows Australian manufacturing skill is equal to the best in the world. The US Navy has already offered his company more work.
We've been awarded another small contract and hopefully other contracts to follow.
Just after peak hour this morning, a Hyundai travelling north along the Pacific Highway at Charlestown collided with a Ford Telstar pulling out of Madison Drive. 3 people were taken to John Hunter Hospital, where their condition is reported to be stable. The intersection is notorious for traffic delays from Madison Drive, and there are plans to ease that congestion with traffic lights to allow access to the highway. And at Bob's Farm on Nelson Bay Road last night, another crash. A Ford Festiva crossed onto the wrong side of the road into the path of oncoming traffic. 4 people were treated for their injuries at the scene and taken to John Hunter Hospital. All, including a 6-year-old boy, are reported to be in a stable condition. Adam Harper, NBN News.
far as I'm concerned, he can burn in bloody hell.
That was Gary Johns' thoughts on Knights chairman Michael Hill, the man he blames for his son Matthew leaving the club.
If the board of directors or the bean counters or whoever is responsible for the decisions could possibly fit him in the cap, they would have. They would have avoided all this. That's common sense.
The coach laughed off claims he influenced the club's decision on Matthew.
I can understand his emotion as a father and all that sort of thing, and at the moment he's just desperately springing haymakers at everyone, and I think the only ones he's missed is our office staff and the dancing girls.
But despite Mr Johns' weekend attack on the club, Ryan doesn't think his relationship with the brothers has soured.
Well, I hope not, and I've reinforced to Matthew that I've tried very hard on his behalf. I've personally fronted David Moffat about, the problem.
However, he is concerned what influence the off-field dramas may have on his team's performance as the run towards the finals gathers momentum.
We can smell ourselves closing on this opportunity, and if we are distracted in any way, shape or form from what's possible, we're just very, very frail psychologically.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
When more than 260 guests attended Neon Ali's wedding last year, they had little idea it was funded by the local Cardiff company she was working for. And unfortunately, neither did the business. The 27-year-old former clerk charged with 40 counts of fraud last November after nearly $208,000 was discovered missing. A pregnant Ali last month pleaded guilty to stealing the money from her employer, Michael Van Dyke, over a 16-month period by creating false invoices and paying the money into her own account. The court was told Ali's initial motivation for carrying out the crime was the thrill and excitement of being able to do it without being caught. She also admitted that once she started, it was difficult to stop. Today, she was sentenced to just 2 months jail in front of her distraught family at Newcastle Local Court with a 10-month parole period. But her former employer, who has since been compensated by the Commonwealth Bank, says it's not enough.
I thought it was a bit light, considering all the problems that she's put our business through.
Ali said through her lawyer today that at this stage she has no way of paying the money back. She'll be released from prison in late July. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
And it's not just this town. We're here for Muswellbrook and Scone and Denman, Merriwa, all the surrounding area that the people we hope will come to our Rosepoint cinemas.
These 90 workers are owed almost $700,000 in entitlements by the failed Scone Fresh Meats. They've fought for 6 months to secure government help, and it now seems that fight may be over.
That I will tomorrow go to Scone with Senator John Tierney as a local representative to meet with those particular workers to advise them of the scheme, the payments that have been made.
But Mr Reith says the payout may only be around 50% of what the workers are owed because the state government has failed to support the federal scheme.
Whilst it was acknowledged by the New South Wales government that they had a responsibility, a shared responsibility, the New South Wales government is not prepared to lift a finger to help these workers.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The woman lived alone, and it was her daughter who made the terrible discovery in the Vine Street house. She immediately alerted her mother's friend and neighbour.
I wouldn't think this had happened to her though, because she was just didn't interfere with anybody. You know, so it has shocked me. Oh, I don't know.
Police arrived at 11:30, including officers from Strike Force Rappo, who've been investigating the murder of two women in the nearby suburb of Carrington for almost a fortnight.
They're here to assist the local police with investigation. They're not directly involved in this investigation. They're in the area at the time. They've come over to assist us with our inquiries.
The alarm was raised when the victim did not arrive for work this morning. It was after that her body was found lying naked in the bedroom with an article of clothing tied around the neck. It is believed that a stocking was used to strangle the 51-year-old. Sue Dunn says that her friend had just painted her house and had been using public transport to get to work because her car was stolen 2 months ago.
She got her insurance money a few weeks back, but hadn't found a car that she wanted or was, you know, good enough for her. And yeah, she was going to get one today because she was freezing going to work every morning on the bus. I love her.
An autopsy will be carried out tomorrow. David McElwain, NBN News.
You've fostered and built in youngsters that you know can take a step up and not let you down, in fact play very well for you.
More than 200 students from Belmont Primary School took part in a night's development training day designed to both encourage an active lifestyle and discourage smoking.
The message they get today will contribute to the messages that they get in the rest of their lives, and they might remember this special day with the Knights and the fact that, you know, the Knights said that they shouldn't smoke.
Through a series of football drills, Mark Hughes and Todd Lowry have tried to demonstrate the benefits of being healthy. It's the first time the Knights have backed the campaign, and there are plans to continue supporting the cause.
They all come and watch us play at Marathon, and you know they watch us and see how we play. And we say how that we're non-smokers, and if we did smoke, we wouldn't be playing where we are at the moment.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
Lee Sterry was to meet the unnamed financier said to be buying the breakers at 1 p.m. today. He says he received a call at 10 to 1 telling him there was an emergency and the meeting would have to be postponed.
My gut feeling was that I was being told lies, so I continued on down into the office of the appointment of where I was supposed to be, to which this person was there, Morris McAllister was there, and David Hall was there. I'd basically been told outright lies when I walked in that 3 jaws hit the floor, and basically they were caught with their pants down.
David Hall is selling the breakers to True Blue, a company in which he has a shareholding. The coach says he has little confidence in any consortium associated with Mr Hall, especially when the club has bills outstanding for this season of about $120,000.
If that's right, well, if somebody of substance is coming in and going to finance a place, you can't tell me that in 3 weeks they can't write out cheques enough to the total of $120,000 for a football club.
The club's CEO, Morris McAllister, says the incident was a misunderstanding and that Lee Sterry did not walk in on the financier, but his accountant. They were hoping to tie up all the loose ends of the club's sale before a meeting between the coach and new owner was held.
Basically, I just want to plead to the people of Newcastle, to certainly the public and the business sector, to try and get this club back. We need people that are financially strong enough to get the club back. Simple as that.
In common with the rest of Australia, more than 1/3 of Hunter people have access to the internet in some form. But according to Research Director Wedge Paradise, shopping malls aren't about to crumble from neglect. Internet shopping is still in its infancy.
About 6% of households have purchased items on the internet over the last 12 months, and that's very similar to what it is throughout Australia as a whole.
According to new research, people living in regional areas aren't spending as much online as their city counterparts. Dr. Paradise says the internet is a double-edged sword for business and can be either a threat or an opportunity.
People and businesses will be able to access that information from anywhere in the world. The opportunities, of course, is the reverse, is that anywhere in the world can access and get that sort of service from companies located here in the Hunter.
The Prince of Wales Hotel is just one business to expand online. It started its own internet site, www.wineretail. And while it's only still a small part of the overall business, the potential is there for expansion.
The markets for us are also expanding over into the US. We've just started selling to the US this week, and we hope to go from there. We've got more plans to move into the UK and into Asia as well.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's probably the last place you'd expect debate over the Matthew Johns saga, but member for Newcastle Bryce Gaudry has brought it up in State Parliament.
The treatment that he has had, Mr Acting Speaker, is a disgrace, and it's something that the Newcastle Knights management must take into account in their dealings with this talented player.
Mr Gaudry, a faithful Knights supporter, this afternoon moved a motion deploring the Knights' treatment of Johns. Newcastle bosses aren't amused.
I think there's an appropriate place and time for everything, and I really don't think that this was exactly the right and exact time and place to raise it.
The Knights instead would have preferred Mr Gaudry to lobby for a multi-million-dollar upgrade of Marathon Stadium. It's not the first time the Knights have made State Parliament. Their grand final win rated a mention in 1997.
The salary cap is a significant issue, there's no doubt about that. But I think it's a complex issue and people have to really understand the whole process of what the salary cap means.
While Matthew may not be at the club next year, the Knights hinted today he's definitely part of their future plans.
Well, we have been talking to Matthew Johns. It's not as if we're still isolated from Matthew. He's an integral part of this club. He will remain an integral part of this club, and in the future he's going to be part of this club.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
On a steady rise over the last 2 years, the Breakers achieved their best finish ever in 2000, despite the administrative woes that prompted coach Sterry to lash out yesterday.
The outburst and sort of emotion shown by Lee, I suppose it shows, where he's at the moment, and which is no man's land. Not a good position to be in.
For weeks there has been confusion over just who owns the Breakers. As a result, Captain Shane Price says the whole team is concerned about next season, especially the 10 players coming off contract.
At the end of the day, people have got their futures and families and so forth to look after, and that's got to come first.
Soccer Australia is still waiting for David Hall to supply details of his involvement with the club. True Blue is the property development company that heads the consortium which is supposed to have finally bought the Breakers soon after coach Sterry hit out yesterday. When contacted today, a spokesman would not comment on former owner David Hall's role in the group.
They're saying that it's going to be a new entity, and then that he's going to have not much, control in it. But who knows? It's a lottery, isn't it?
Dog Overboard is the canine equivalent of a gym, doctor's surgery and salon rolled into one. It's the brainchild of Hunter Ambulance Officer Russ Mullins.
My wife's an absolute dog fanatic, and we wanted to do something to do with dogs. And we just thought Newcastle could use a really, good fun place where people could come and have some fun with their dogs.
From the treadmill to the obstacle course, the centre aims to add dog years to the life of your pooch. They can even take a quick dip in a heated pool, although some dogs are more adept than others.
Oh, he loves it. Great, he loves it.
Yesterday we had a really fat one who's on a program. He's going to come in 3 days a week. We might make a Jenny Craig special out of him. But a lot of the breeders have been interested because they can tone up their dogs.
And after a hard day's workout, a new age dog can even kick up his 4 heels and relax in the spa.